the Higher Education ESD Spotlight Series. My name is Mark Kelly and I'm currently on secondment at the Higher Education Authority as a Policy Advisor on Education for Sustainable Development. So with the Spotlight Series, each week we have a different institute presenting on their ESD practice, which we'll get to in a second, but just some rules of engagement, I suppose, for today. Please keep your microphones on mute. If you have any questions, please post them into the chat or the Q&A. I know some of you may not have access to the chat, so either the Q&A and the chat, and we'd field questions at the end of the presentations. Just to flag as well that we have an open call on case studies for anybody, and the link is up on your screen there, or open education resources. All sessions are recorded and will be available early next week. So please circulate to your colleagues. And as I said, we'll have a Q&A at the very end. So today we're delighted that we have TU Dublin in the Spotlight Series. And just to flag that TU Dublin are a recognised HEA Centre for Sustainability across the curriculum, with HEA standing for the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education. And I would especially like to welcome all the HEA network members to the Spotlight Series today. So I'm going to hand over to Olivia, and she's going to take it away from a TU Dublin perspective.
Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you, Mark, for organising this great series. I've really enjoyed the meetings so far. And it's great to see the brilliant work that's going on in ESD. And also welcome to those joining from the HEA network as well from us. So my name is Dr. Olivia Freeman. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Dr. Lucia Walsh. I'm a lecturer and I'm currently seconded to the Sustainability Education team at TU Dublin. And Lucia is Sustainability Education and Innovation Lead. And we will first provide a brief overview of the strategy around ESD at TU Dublin. We'll then hand over to our colleagues, Rachel Freeman, Katrina Quinn, and Dr. Róisín Vize, who will share examples from ESD in practice. So TU Dublin was established in 2019 when 3 Dublin-based institutes of technology, Blanchardstown Tallaght and DIT, all merged. And the university strategy centres on 3 pillars: people, planet and partnership. And our approach to education for sustainable development cuts across all 3 of these areas. And the strategy is underpinned by national and international policy, including the SDG framework, the European Green Deal, and the UNESCO framework, as well as the National Climate Action Plan. So strategy around the planet pillar includes the aim for the university to become a beacon for sustainability and to develop responsible global citizens. We've specific KPIs around staff capacity building, sustainability literacy, and about embedding sustainability into the curriculum. So the inclusion of a strong emphasis around sustainability, both in our graduate attributes and our university education model, creates a strong foundation for our approach to ESD. The university education model was launched last year and it is informed by SDG 4, quality education, and it's grounded in systems thinking, collaboration and transformation. Fundamental 7 is a springboard to embed sustainability into all programs, into the learning outcomes of all of our programs, and this in turn supports the realization of our graduate attributes. And our quality assurance procedures now require evidence that sustainability is embedded into all program level learning outcomes. So our graduate attributes are connected to our people, planet and partnership pillars. And our sustainability focused graduate attribute is specifically informed by the Green Comp framework. So embedding the 4 areas of the Green Comp framework. So that's embodying sustainability values, embracing complexity and sustainability, envisioning sustainable futures and acting for sustainability. When we embed all of these into the curriculum, we aim to nurture the development of graduates who are socially engaged and responsible global citizens. And our approach is also informed by the UNESCO ESG framework. So we're not exclusively using Green Comp. We're also using the head, heart, and hands model that is ingrained into the UNESCO approach. So sustainability at TU Dublin is led by our Vice President, Jennifer Boyer, and the office spans sustainability education, campus decarbonisation, sustainability intelligence, and also societal engagement. And the education team is led by my colleague, Dr. Brian Gormley. So our work focuses on building staff capacity, sustainability literacy, and embedding sustainability into programs and modules. So I'm going to hand over now to Dr. Lucia Walsh, who will tell you more about the work of the sustainability education team.
Okay, thanks, Olivia. So I am going to talk about how we build a staff capacity and then other initiatives as well that we engage in relation to enhancing sustainability mindsets at our university. So the first one is a formal way of staff capacity building. And this is our CPD called Educating for Sustainability, which is level 9. And so far, over 100 colleagues participated in this learning opportunity. It focuses on becoming familiar with the key environmental, social, and economic principles. And then we talk about ESD and also how to embed sustainability meaningfully. And that's the key word that we keep coming back to as well, through transformative pedagogies into their teaching, learning, and assessment. We also have a number of in-person workshops that encourage active-based learning and allow colleagues from different disciplines to connect and establish cross-disciplinary collaborations. And we have seen a few of these established already. The next one is a digital badge in education for sustainability. And this is in collaboration with ATU, Southeast Technological University, and it is supported by the National Forum for Teaching and Learning. So far, about 400 participants from higher education across Ireland have participating or are participating because we are currently in the middle of the current iteration. The digital badge is structured around GreenCom competency framework, and we also offer a facilitator's badge add-on to participants. We also offer, apart from formal learning, we have many opportunities for collaboration or specific workshops with school, discipline, or program teams to guide colleagues through reviewing and redesigning their programs or individual modules. So far, we have delivered 80 workshops over the last 2 academic years with over 1,000 academic staff engaging in these. We also provide resources through our Sustainability Education Toolkit, so please have a look at it and let us know what you think. There are helpful resources with key information about social, environmental, and economic elements of the SDGs, and then also guidance on how colleagues can review and redesign their program and modules. We link to other useful resources, such as the UCC mapping tool. And we are also currently building case studies to inspire others and also have a library of other resources that can be used by colleagues to support their teaching, learning, and assessment activities. We also have a SDG community of practice that was established back in 2020, and it was a very much, a grassroots initiative in the university. It brings together colleagues from all parts of our university through workshops, guest seminars, and other collaborations. So I'm going to talk now about some activities or initiatives that are firmly established in our calendar. And the first one is orientation. We engage with about 6,000 students every year in September. And these are our incoming students, and they're introduced to what sustainability means to us at the university, and more importantly, how can they engage as they start their university journey. We also co-deliver a 30-minute session with our student ambassadors and engage with these incoming students in other fun-related climate action activities. In October every year, we also run our Climate Action Week, and it happens across all of our 5 campuses in collaboration with student, staff, and community partners. And the collaboration spans across many activities and events. Last week was our Green Week, and it was a very successful one. We had almost 50 events with over 1,600 participants. In addition to engaging in workshops and seminars and other events, many native trees were also planted and litter picked around campuses and beaches. Another initiative is our Students Learning with Communities program that is supported by our societal engagement. It focuses on embedding sustainability into modules and programs in a very meaningful way through collaborations with local community organizations, and many of our colleagues built it into their assessment, and Rachel will talk to you more about how she did it in her module. This initiative also aligns very closely with our TU Dublin graduate attributes that Olivia mentioned earlier. And then some of our other engaging activities would include stepping into donut or other donut economics related activities. So the Step into Donut, for example, is a playful and embodied way of learning about planetary boundaries, social foundations, and the safe and inclusive space for everyone. It also prompts the participants to use it as a thinking tool in relation to their practice, and encourages action. Another example is Climate Fresque, and many of you may be familiar with this one already. It is a collaborative workshop that helps participants to understand the science behind climate change, and it uses interactive card-based approach game that is based on IPCC reports. It guides groups through cause and effect relationships, and it fosters systems thinking, deep discussion, and most importantly, action. Our colleagues, Sarah Rowe and Ken Boyle, developed this paper-based climate change team escape room that has been used with many groups of students. And again, it's another very engaging way for students to explore climate change through fun puzzles and a little bit of competitiveness as well between teams. So this was a brief overview of what we do as you know, in our sustainability education team across the university. And I will hand you over to our first speaker, Rachel Freeman, who is from the School of Culinary Arts and Food Technology.
So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rachel Freeman. So I'm a horticulturalist and lecturer working for almost 20 years on the Blanchardstown campus of TU Dublin. And I suppose I'll begin with what is horticulture, because many people are not familiar with what it is. Horticulturalists, we are the people who grow the plants that you'll find in your garden centres. When you go down to your local authority park, we're the people that design, build and maintain those spaces. We operate landscape companies, work as head gardeners in large private estates, maybe OPW properties. We run golf courses, sports grounds, community gardens. We produce food. We're florists, therapeutic horticulturalists, and much, much more. So within the discipline of horticulture, or within the university, I should say, the discipline of horticulture is broad in terms of our graduate possibilities. And the roles mentioned above and others, our grads are faced with exploring, designing and implementing solutions to a myriad of climate, environmental and societal challenges. And in the delivery of our programme, we seek to underpin their horticultural learning with the knowledge and skills to face these challenges with competence. So using a variety of pedagogical approaches and the inclusion of the Green Prompt framework in our modules, we look to grow their knowledge of sustainability as it pertains to our discipline. So within the modules, we provide for practice-based immersive horticultural environment for them to work within. We guide them to envision potential solutions to climate and environmental challenges. And we do this through exploratory and critical thinking, developing their adaptability, their innovation skills, communication skills, and so on within our teaching and assessment strategies. It's been a long-standing approach to education and horticulture that we operate with students learning with communities, and this aligns very much with TU Dublin's strategic intent through the university education model, where learner choice and learner support and learner experience seeks to transform the student experience, and then through the graduate attributes, where the people, planet and partnership are key tenets. The nature of our discipline lends itself well to experiential learning, as do the students, because many that enrol are kinesthetic learners. Therefore, our approach to teaching and assessment, the nature and learning style of the student in tandem with the university's vision, supports the students' learning with communities to take place. So look, it's not without its challenges, as I will outline when I go through the many collaborations that we have developed, but developing and managing networks, seeking funding, versus the timetable hours and the workload are all things we overcome in doing so. We've been engaging with a variety of partners, community partners in our degree programme for more than 16 years at this stage. And the start was born out of our civic engagement model as it was at the time. And over the years, we would have got lots of requests looking for help, from the horticulture discipline. And many of these requests were really something that should have been directed to a landscaper. And I often sent back details of a graduate that they could hire for a fee. But an ask from Blakestown Drive Community Group, a group of local Dublin 15 people, was very different. And it gave us the opportunity to get into this space with our second year group project module as it was. Blakestown Drive Community Group described themselves as thinking local and acting global, with a practical focus on making an investment in the environment and society. And they wrote us a letter looking for a hand with the redevelopment of green area that had become a litter black spot. And it was a site between Blakestown Drive and the local Scoil. And the key difference with their request, and I quote, is, "We're prepared to roll our sleeves up and get our hands dirty, but we're not really sure what we should be doing." And their request resonated, and it aligned really well with community engaged learning and the idea of partnership and doing with as opposed to doing for. And that was key in our decision to explore the possibility of working with the community on a module. So following some discussion and a site visit, we agreed a plan and a schedule for engagement. And as lecturer, I took responsibility for drawing up the collaboration agreement with all the parties. We considered issues around insurance, child protection. We adapted risk assessments for the task. We made teaching plans for the delivery of a module off-site, running 9 to 1 on a Wednesday morning. I drove our tractor and trailer down, filled with our tools and equipment, to the site, and the students met me there. And over the semester, the community volunteers, school children and students co-designed and co-built a linked garden space between the school and the community green. Every member of the team had a role and everybody contributed, and they played to their strengths. The community engaged the local authority to clear the worst of the dumped waste. The students trimmed the overgrowth, cleared leaves, started new compost areas, and work began on a path and ornamental and food borders. To bring awareness to the school children of the need to care for the area and no longer litter, we got them involved in the work of litter picking, growing plants for the borders and planting when the time came. A litter awareness campaign started in the school, and the students put on short activities on seed sowing for each of the classes. They sowed peas and lettuce and beetroot and so on for the new food border, and the community focused on the provision for pollinators. The students were able to guide the community in the selection of species to fit best the site and fulfil the pollinator requirement, eventually planting the site alongside the volunteers. Learning outcomes on this module focused on design and implementation, working safely and collaboration. One of the assessments at the end of the module was a group presentation to the community and the school, the handing over of a care manual for the maintenance of the garden, and a reference that they could look back on. Throughout the project, the Blakestown Drive volunteers contributed what they could. The elderly neighbours that couldn't get involved in the physical aspects of the work came out each day to chat to the students about the project, to ask about plants or to simply connect. One lovely pensioner baked pies for the tea break. The project was hugely rewarding, but it wasn't without its hiccups. Been off-site, forgetting anything that we needed for that day's work set the schedule back. A puncture in the tractor meant we lost a day, and on a weekly 4-hour slot in a 12-week semester, that was very impactful. The 4-hour delivery for this 5-credit module was never enough time for me to get it all done. The admin and logistics of the module fell outside of that time. Blakestown was our first foray into the education in and with community, and we learned an awful lot from it. And in the years in between, we have refined our practice and we have adapted our module. But yet this is a model that we have replicated and adapted many times since with other groups. With a colleague, Kieran Ryan, I wrote a paper for UD Height Conference in 2018. I've put a link there in the resource slide at the end for you. And we have several articles from our Horticulture Trade magazine that offer more information on community horticulture and the impacts that it has on learning. And they're also in the resource slide. I guess at this point, many of you might be asking why I persist with something that's clearly heavy-duty teaching. There's a great joy in sharing our practice and bringing together people to achieve a common goal. We often do it in a shoestring budget. It is littered with potential for derailment, and this type of teaching for me is much nicer to do than cramming in theory via PowerPoint slides to a disengaged audience of students and then handing them an exam at the end. They bring their learning from several modules together in one project. They collaborate as a class, they divide up tasks, they support and enable each other working as a team, and they have a client and a collaborator in the community group. They learn to communicate, problem solve, adapt, disseminate knowledge, and do it all with a sustainability focus. Community engaged and student-centred learning with a sustainability focus where the students and I can make an impact with knowledge sharing and implementing sustainable landscape practices and developing the experiences research is far more rewarding for all involved. The icing on the cake for us was that following the building of this garden, a Blakestown volunteer decided to return to education, and she joined us the following September, completed her level 8, and now she works with MCD Landscapes in Dublin as a landscape manager. So a really good story in that one. The next collaboration is our social and therapeutic horticulture program and the Pathways Together program. So I teach this module and we have an integrated education program running on campus called Pathways. And the Pathways guys join us for 2 of the 4-hour delivery weekly. So how does this operate? Well, the first 2 hours, I cover the theory of the module like you might with any other theory and practice, and then we're joined by the group in the workshop. And these are a group of adults with intellectual disability. And during the integrated session, the students, as part of their assessment, adapt horticulture activities to engage the learners therapeutically, but also to fulfil the requirements of the learners' FETAC Level 2 in horticulture. This is the only STH module of its kind in Ireland, and at this level, and students get first-hand experience of the adaptation of delivery. And it's lovely to see the personal growth of the students across the semester as they become more comfortable with the learners, as the learners become more comfortable with them. A component of the assessment then is reflection, and this growth permeates the pages. Initially, they write of fear and not knowing how to be or how to engage with the adults with intellectual disability, seeing them as peers with a positive contribution to make. And one good story out of this is a graduate of ours, Anthony Quinn. He joined Fulham Football Club as head groundsman in 22, and during his time at the club, he employed a man with intellectual disability on the groundskeeping staff. And he said that his experience in the module prepared him really well and made the decision easy to hire. Our next collaboration is with...
That's just 10 minutes, yeah.
Perfect, thank you, is with Stepping Stones Forests. And this is the brainchild of a Talaman who decided he had to make up for years of what he termed being a climate laggard and that his legacy would be urban forests. So John approached me looking for help. He was a former banker. He had figured out the money end of things and got some cash out of ACS and Google and the like, but he had no idea about species selection, about soils, sites, urban forests or any of that. I teach the trees and woodland module, so I was more than happy to help. I supplied him with plant lists, put him in touch with suppliers, and we went out on a few plantings to embed good practice in the planting skills in the beginning, and I brought the students with me to see and experience the practice. You know, engagement of this nature, it keeps my sectoral knowledge relevant, but engaging the students offers them an opportunity to see firsthand what's possible when you decide to act positively in a climate emergency. John, in return, has been brilliant. He's been a guest speaker. We've written articles together. He has given us 2 stepping stones for us on campus. Ablana Beekeeping came out of that relationship with John. These guys, John knew them. They were looking for a new home because their farm site in Lucan was sold to a developer. So on the 21st of April 22, we welcomed the group and 8 hives of our native Black Irish honeybee onto the horticulture complex. Our immediate response was to double down on the planting for pollinators on the campus, and through our green flag process, we eliminated the use of glyphosate and its derivatives from use. We teach apiculture on our degree programme, and we always relied on the field trips for practical elements and for the practical delivery, but that limited our access and our practical teaching capability. So having the hives on site has transformed this, as has the general knowledge, the generous knowledge sharing from the Ablana beekeepers. We have our lovely Glass community garden on site. Glass stands for Green Living and Sustainability, and it's a first-class educational community garden on the Blanchardstown campus. On this one, we're collaborating with Fingal County Council and Global Action Plan to manage and operate the garden. GAP manage the site and employ a horticulturalist, Lee. And Lee has an honours degree in horticulture and he's a former graduate of our programme, so things have kind of come full circle for us. Lee has sole responsibility for all aspects of the garden 12 months of the year. It's a really well-maintained, thriving food growing space. It's a biodiverse space. It's socially inclusive. It's a place where local community members come together and students to share knowledge, develop skills around climate and environmental issues. At a very practical level, this kind of translates to making raised beds, growing food, composting, alongside the all-important tea and chat. So you might say, why are we collaborating on a community garden? Well, we had huge challenges when we were trying to run the community garden. For us, the on-the-ground maintenance of a community garden alongside our lecturing commitments was huge. The most time the garden needed us was our busiest period from March to May each year, with exams and supervision and marking. And with that challenge eliminated, we were able to focus our efforts on supporting Lee. We were able to dip into research and develop impact reports in an effort to drive funding and ensure that the positive impact of the garden is recognised and it's funded for the future. And the situation is very much the same with our apiary. You might say, why didn't we bring hives on site ourselves? The work with the bees intensifies from March until about October, November. And it also requires one to be available to deal with a swarm maybe at short notice, because bees technically are livestock, and much like farming, you need to live close by and be available, and that's not really something that's conducive to commuting and lecturing and putting your students first. So the collaboration has been hugely useful in that regard. I hope that this gives you some sense of the richness that we look to bring to the student learning experience, the engagement and knowledge sharing with our local community, and our actions for sustainability. And I really do hope it inspires somebody to take practical action. Despite all the challenges that are there, it's hugely rewarding for me personally, hugely rewarding for the students, but also from an environmental sustainability perspective. So if anybody wants to get in touch and hear more about any aspect of this, please feel free to get in touch with me. And like I said, I've popped some resources in a slide, a link to resources there in a slide at the end. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. You're getting some clap emojis there. It was really, you packed so much in. It was really interesting to hear about all of that, all of the collaboration going on, and lovely to hear the full circle stories. I really think that says so much. So we'll move on now to our next speaker, who is Katrina Quinn from the School of Transport and Civil Engineering at TU Dublin. And Katrina is going to present Sustainable Design in Civil and Structural Engineering, a case study of new module development.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Olivia. Rachel, that was glorious. It was, if I could be one of your students, wouldn't that be absolutely wonderful? It was inspirational. Let me introduce myself. My name is Katrina Quinn. I work in the School of Transport and Civil Engineering. I myself am a microbiologist and then did environmental engineering and came to engineering through the path of science. So I am still a scientist working in the engineering, bringing the softer, I suppose, that side of work to the engineers. So without further ado, because I know we're Olivia, can I ask for a 10-minute as well on the time if I get there? I may not.
Yeah, no problem.
For this, I focused on a new module that we brought in about 3 years ago. I deliver this module co-deliver it with my colleague Aidan Duffy. In fairness, I don't need to go on further. I'll be explaining it. So where did this module come from? It's called Sustainable Design. Okay, we didn't give it further than that, and it's delivered to the civil and structural engineers. So the reason that this module came into being, that we felt the need for this module like this, was obviously the things that have been discussed so far in the talks today. So alignment with TU Dublin, sustainability education. We were also starting to get a lot of response from industry when we spoke with industry about what they wanted from graduates who were coming out of our civil and structural programs. That they wanted them to be sustainability literate, but as anyone who works in engineering will know, one of the prime drivers for things is Engineers Ireland and accreditation with Engineers Ireland. Engineers Ireland changed their program or their accreditation criteria a few years ago to include what's called a new program area called sustainability. And this overlaps greatly actually with and aligns with a lot of this stuff that we talked about, the graduate attributes the things that were mentioned at the beginning of the presentation today. So things like critical thinking, problem solving, envisaging, systems thinking, along with ethical things like being a participant in decision making and not being passive. So that aligns with things like Green Comp and aligns with, of course, our graduate attribute desires for our students. So it was a perfect fit, and it was well needed. So the next question then is to where do we put it? So just to give you, I know that's pretty small, but just to give you a really quick overview, we run two kind of streams in the civil and structural. We have a level 7 program and a level 8 program. They are separate at the moment, but we would have a significant number of our level 7 graduates who would then move into level 8. We wanted to catch essentially everybody before they were graduating the level 8 program, potentially with movement down to level 7 over time if this went well. So we've decided, here's our level 8 program here. We have ab initio people who come into it, and we decided that final year was the place to put this because some of the concepts tend to be high level. We wanted them to bring a lot of the ideas that they would have learned in previous modules, not silo their knowledge, and bring it together into these into this module and be able to do some design work. So we brought it in at a level, at a final year. So that's our two level, our structures and our civils. That was another conscious decision that was made, that it would be delivered to both structural and civil engineers. Without going too long into it, Ireland and the UK are kind of unique in that we have separate streams, usually for civil and structural. On the continent, we tend to have civil and substructural as a subset of that. We wanted to catch all of our graduates before they left. We decided to place it into final year in semester 1. It replaced a maths module at the time, a 5 ECTS module, so it's replaced it with the same number of ECTS. The maths would be taken care of in previous years. We wanted guest lecturing to feature heavily in this in order that the students understood that this wasn't just coming from us as staff, but it was coming in from industry as well. In order to reflect best practice, we wanted this to come in a workshop format. So it would be design workshops. Information would be delivered or supplied either prior to the class or during the class, and then students would have a chance to digest that information while with staff and industry experts while working on design work or assessment work in the classroom. Our student numbers vary per year, around about 50 to 70 when you take all the two classes together. So we assigned 2 staff to that in order that we could provide them with better ratio of access to the staff knowledge and guidance. We had many discussions about whether or not we would have an examination, but in the end we decided to use a 50% continuous assessment and 50% closed book examination. The reason being that we find that continuous assessment tends to favor group work. It's favored in accreditation, but it means that if a student is not as strong, it doesn't get they can slightly hide in the background, and strong students then maybe are tempered by that, whereas examination tends to highlight individual knowledge. So we wanted a sample of both with revision idea over time if we needed to change that. It has worked so far. Moving on then. So what did we put into it? Well, what did we decide was important to teach our students? So this is really just the headings of the learning outcomes. We obviously have these spread out a little bit more in our module descriptor, but this is what we've, based on the feedback, as I said, from Engineers Ireland and industry, this is what we decided to put in. So climate change, looking at the SDGs, looking at energy policy, mitigation and adaptation strategies, renewable energy technologies, sustainable design assessment and certification, and life cycle assessments. So essentially a lot of information. So there's so many things I would love to tell you about in the background of these decisions, but I know we're short of time, so I'll continue on. In the first year, we approached each week as a separate kind of topic. We were feeling our way through the module. We had multiple guest lectures. Some of them came in, they were people who weren't assigned to the module, but they were staff in the college. Some of them were industry experts who came in to speak to us. We had lots of assignments. on all these like various different topics. And the class itself, not content related, but it was because we had 4 different things to schedule. We had 2 different student groups and 2 different lecturing staff. The only time we could find time for it was Friday afternoon from 2 to 5. And the final part of it was that it ended up being scheduled on the Grangegorman campus rather than being on Bolton Street, where we take all of our other modules. More on that later. When we reflected on the year, and during the year, the first thing that happened was that some of the structure students we found were strategically unhappy about the removal of the maths module. They had known it was coming. They had thought that's a lock for final year, and they didn't take to it well. So we had a little bit of reticence in that. Hopefully we won them around, but that was a finite problem that didn't appear again because the subsequent years didn't know about the maths module in final year. So it disappeared. The overall, both the students, the feedback from the students, and we recognize ourselves, we had too many assessments in the year, and that needed to change. And the Friday afternoon time, we struggled with student engagement as a result of it being on Fridays from 2 to 5. The classroom setup, we had 2 rooms booked because we wanted them to be able to spread out. We initially had 1 room booked. When we had planned this module, it got turned into offices over the summer, so we lost it, unfortunately, and it was a little bit harder to work with, but totally we worked with it in the end, and we managed to make it work. Overhauled the module for the second round, and Aidan and I decided to split it into 2 big strands: biodiversity, which I would look after, and energy, which is his research area. And this would hit on all of the learning outcomes, but under kind of an umbrella heading, biodiversity and energy. We couldn't change the scheduling. It's still on Friday afternoon. We couldn't really change the rooms either, so we just had to work with those. But we did reduce the number of assessments in relation to that, where we had 1 biodiversity and 1 energy related assessment. Within that, there were some sub-assessments, but it released the students from this ongoing pressure of 1 assessment after another in final year. And the feedback from them was much improved. They found this much more easy to deal with. Again, we had guest lecturers come in, both from energy and biodiversity. We still struggled with the attendance issues in year 2 because of the Friday afternoon. In year 3, which is just the semester that's just gone now, we replicated that dual strand approach. We refined our assessments. This time we included more peer-to-peer assessment. We also moved the class back to Bolton Street, which we were able to get a hold of some rooms in Bolton Street, and that improved attendance for us, which is great. Okay, so the reason I mention those things, that even though they're not sustainability related, I felt an impetus to tell you about them because for want of a horseshoe nail, for the best, you can design the best module in the world, and if you have it at the wrong time and don't get student buy-in, we found that you really struggle to get the information and to allow the students the experience because they simply don't show up to have it. Okay, so now I'm going to talk
just
about
10 minutes now.
that's
Sorry,
10 minutes. Okay, great. So I'm on my last few. I'm not going to mention the exams because it's just a standard exam. So I'm just going to mention the 2 assignments that Aidan and I did. The format was much the same for both of us. As we said, we did a big assignment with many formative assignments within it. For the students who engaged in those formative sessions throughout, they did much better when they got their marks. The ones who didn't engage, they still submitted things, but it was clear that they hadn't engaged and hadn't received that formative feedback. I'll just tell you what the 2. So it's so similar. There's so much in Rachel's presentation that I would have loved to be able to expose my students to, because we got them to design an urban greening feature for the biodiversity assessment, which was actually driven by industry feedback from Rob Rowlands at RPS. He suggested that might be something, because it's something that he as an ecologist in RPS is getting asked for a lot. So he wants his civil engineers that he meets and works with to know what that is, to know how it works, to know why it's important. The other thing that I encouraged this year more than previous years was some level of assessment of the social impact of these kinds of designs. I think it's something really important, and I'll be doing that in future as well. Obviously, they were encouraged to be innovative. We didn't give them a budget to work with because oftentimes they get bound up with the most basic, and we wanted them to have a little bit more imagination. The first day I got them to go out and look around the Grange Gorman campus or around anywhere and pick up some examples of biodiversity features if they could. Then they worked the next few weeks on their deliverables, and then they presented at the end of 6 weeks. And here's some pictures that I took from their final. These are both of the Bolton Street courtyards. If anybody knows, it's quite a little kind of slightly grim pond in the middle of Bolton Street, redone by the students with new planting and a space that would be more enjoyable. They felt would be more enjoyable for the students to take part in. A lot of them chose Bolton Street as their site. Aidan's assessment was life cycle emissions. He essentially got them to design a building. That's the one pictured at the very beginning. Design the building, then take it, break it down, look at the embodied carbon in it, and then to redesign the building with a lower carbon intensity. He also got he had a good few guest speakers in to talk about environmental product declarations, multitude of things, but his assignment was on LCA. So going forward, just to finalize, we would really love to see more integration of these sustainability design concepts into other modules. So getting, say, in a structures model, getting the student to take that design they did in that module, and then assessing it under the headings that we have here. To include more rigorous reflection, because as I've heard from multitudes of teachers now at this level, that students don't always know that they're doing something sustainable, and that would be great to get them to call it out. And if we could move the timetable to get more engagement. So apologies now, I've probably gone over time, but that's me. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Katrina. And I can see future collaboration between you and Rachel already.
Yes.
So thank you. And our last speaker is Dr. Róisín Vize, and Róisín is based in the Faculty of Business in School of Marketing and Entrepreneurship. And Róisín is going to talk about embedding ESD into assessment.
Okay, super. Listen, thank you so much for inviting me here today. Wonderful, inspiring presentations. Absolutely fantastic work being done. It's really reassuring, isn't it? So I'm going to talk to you today. I'm with the School of Marketing and Entrepreneurship. My discipline is marketing, lecturing in marketing and digital marketing. So I'm going to talk to you about ESD assessment, specifically in relation to the Smarter Travel programme, which some of you may or may not be familiar with, and also aligning it with the EU Green Comp framework. So I suppose by way of context or motivation for embedding ESD, obviously we know and are very aware of living in this era of overconsumption and ultra convenience. And to be honest, it's really hard to ignore the role that marketing is playing in cultivating this era of overconsumption and ultra convenience. And really that is driven by personalized recommendations, one-click checkouts, rapid delivery turnarounds. And now with AI coming into play, it's another minefield of overconsumption that we just can't ignore. And to be honest, even from a personal perspective, I feel a responsibility to address this. I don't know if anybody has seen the Buy Now Netflix documentary released a couple of months ago. Very thought-provoking. It's one that I have started to get my students to watch. If you're in the sales or marketing or business discipline, I would highly recommend it. Essentially, it exposes the dark side of marketing, pretty much kind of what lurks beneath, the glitz and the glamour of having stuff and more stuff. And really, for me, it highlighted that, marketing and business as usual, it's just not sustainable. So yeah, I lecture in, and I'm an educator of marketing, which is underpinned by excessive, production and consumption. So I do feel it is a responsibility for me to take these things into consideration to reimagine marketing principles, but through a sustainable, responsible and ethical lens. I think it's essential. It also helps to address one of the goals, the SDG goal 12, to ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. And I suppose if we step back as well and look at it from a kind of a macro perspective, we are seeing, thankfully, changes in behaviour. So at a consumer level, the recent EPA Climate Change in the Irish Mind report, they had the 2 reports, and the most recent one in 24 showed a shift in consumption. Where there is more conscious consumption. Consumers are willing to put their pennies and their loyalty in brands that they believe are making better efforts at being sustainable. And then I suppose you look at the other side of the dyad, and you have at firm level, where again, recent research is showing that businesses, now we do have policy that's coming down the line, or that's already in place with the larger firms, where yes, they do have to report on their ESG, and that's great. But it seems anyway from the research that firms, they want to be sustainable, and they want to have sustainable practices and do good. But it seems the struggle is that, the motivation is there, the will is there, but the struggle is, how do I implement sustainable supply chains or sustainable business practices? So, the research is showing that there is a significant gap in skills to lead and manage change towards sustainable practices. And I think this is a gap that we are, and particularly from the marketing perspective of obviously my discipline, is we are uniquely positioned to influence this. So there is a need for graduates to be equipped with sustainability knowledge and skills to address these gaps and the evolving kind of landscape. And this is also articulated in SDG 4, where this particular SDG is understood to be a critical goal. So this needs to be achieved in order for the other 16 to be achieved. So again, a heavy weight on education for sustainable development. And I think this is also where the Green Comp framework has evolved, I suppose, where it was developed by the European Commission, and that was based on policy calls from the EU Green Deal, the skills agenda, and where Olivia already highlighted. And essentially, it is it's a conceptual framework, a competence framework for lifelong learning. And this particular framework will help feed into our education and our training programs, and ultimately address the gaps that all of us are highlighting, and the importance of building that knowledge and skill set. So the Green Comp framework, it's lovely. It uses this bee pollination metaphor just to illustrate the sustainability competences, and to illustrate their kind of the interrelationships, the interconnections. And these are mutually reinforcing the competencies. So much like how bees, they pollinate flowers. So you have bees transfer pollen from one flower to another, and that facilitates growth and reproduction and so on and so forth. And the Green Comp framework acts on that, plays on that metaphor, where we encourage this transfer of knowledge, the integration of, sustainability, values, knowledge, actions across different areas in our lives. So it highlights, the importance of the collaboration, of the collective effort, much like, a bee individually has its own job to do, but collectively, the bees within the colony help to create a more, a healthy, a functional environment. And that's much like us, and much like with the Green Comp framework. It is a sustainability competence framework designed to promote learning about sustainability, about environmental sustainability. So it addresses these, or it highlights these 4 competence areas. And then you have the competencies within each of the constructs or competences. And that helps learners helps us as educators to help learners to develop the knowledge, the skills, and the attitudes that really are essential in how they think, how they plan, and how they act, and how we all act as citizens in a more empathetic, responsible, and inclusive way. So just stepping into the Smarter Travel program, some of you may already be familiar with it, but it was an initiative developed by Transport for Ireland. And essentially they invite third level students, it's a nationwide competition, they invite third level students to develop projects that support, facilitate and or enable sustainable and active travel modes to and from campus. So they're the three key areas or categories. For my students, it's the social marketing and the subcategories of marketing and communications, and also programs and advocacy. So students can develop, or design a physical or a digital marketing campaign or an omni-channel campaign, as long as it addresses what's required of the TFI requirements. So in terms of the assessment approach that I've taken with my students, there's kind of multi-parts to it. So we have the first part, I get them to do the Sully test, and they do a brief reflection on the Sully test. And that really is to get them thinking about their understanding, their own general knowledge on sustainability from different perspectives. Then they have to design the poster as per the Smarter Travel requirements. And then they develop a detailed implementable behavior change campaign. So that's where they bring in the theory that they learned in class, any workshops that we've done, the sustainable development goals, and so on and so forth.
Just coming up to 10 minutes, Róisín, just so you know, just coming up to it.
Yeah, lovely. So the process is the students submit their posters to the online platform. Posters are reviewed by industry experts, and then they shortlist students, and the students go to the final awards ceremony, which is a lovely, lovely day. So when we look at how GreenComp kind of manifests through that sustainability, or through the Smarter Travel program, so here we have, embodying sustainability values. They can develop programs that reflect their commitment to sustainability. So they may promote eco-friendly travel options, build awareness campaigns. When we look at embracing complexity, how do we understand, or how can we develop something that can articulate the complexity of sustainability? So they can address those kind of multifaceted areas, and maybe link into the triple bottom line in terms of, the environment, social and economic impacts. So they may design solutions to help reduce carbon emissions, or being cost effective and socially inclusive. And we talk about then sustainable futures. Their ideas, they've come up with some wonderful ideas, and I'll show you examples that link into each of these in a second. But they can develop apps for carpooling, designing bike sharing systems, or maybe an educational program, during RAG Week or whatever it is. Then acting for sustainability, this really should help focus on the practical actions. So whether it's at individual or community level, or they may organize events, encourage cycling, walking, and so on and so forth. So I'll just where are we now? I'll just show you some sample posters. So these two here, these were two winners from a couple of years ago. So Fuel Up with Friends, that's a carpooling initiative. And it really focused in on those benefits of reducing carbon emissions, better air quality, opportunity to bond. And it was based on this reward system to encourage behavior change. The Active April is a social media advocacy campaign. And actually, during the awards ceremony, the TFI were saying that that particular campaign could be rolled out at a national level to, again, encourage sustainability or sustainable transport modes. And the other thing as well is the students aligned different. So while they obviously focused in on SDG 11 and 12, but then I said, look, find other SDGs that you might be able to underpin with your campaign. So this one in particular was on good health and well-being, was another SDG they found. or they identified as relevant. This is one that was submitted just recently. I think it is a really interesting one where this student has identified a gap in the service delivery of public transport, specifically around accessibility. So this person proposed an app designed to improve the accessibility on public transport. And it's kind of the problem that they identified was when somebody might need, wheelchair assistance, the only way they could do this or organize it was through a phone call or an email. So this proposition here is, well, look, we can do it in real time and get and book our place or whatever it is, but really aligning to the inequalities issues and aligning with SDG 10 to reduce inequalities. And then we have the Green Faculty Initiative. What was interesting about this is normally students tend to take the consumer's perspective. It's kind of like with dissertations, they just want to do everything on Gen Z. So it was really nice to see the staff being considered. And this initiative really was based on competition, and you'd have this leaderboard and where they'd have an app that tracks the mode of transport and your health benefits and so on and so forth. I'm just conscious of time. So, and then this one here, Reinvent Your Wheels. So that was to encourage students to rent bikes to and from campus. So examples as to how, the Green Comp framework can align with our, with the Green Comp framework. And I think as well, by integrating the Green Comp framework and smarter travel, it helps students to develop a really solid understanding of sustainability and equip them with their skills, the skills that they need, to be more, to envision, I suppose, a more sustainable future. So finally, anyway, students then would do a reflection on the whole project. And to be honest, the reflections are always fascinating to read. And what I find from them is students that understanding of their ability to actually contribute and make a difference. And to be honest, that helps them to reduce any kind of climate anxiety, which this generation absolutely are suffering from. So they take more ownership over their behaviors, and as articulated in these, and I won't read them, but one of the feedback was, well, I drive into school every day or into college every day. I'm deliberately making an effort to drive or to cycle in at least 2 days a week. And somebody else said that it was, more than a competition. It was a gateway to understanding the complex dynamics of behavioral change. So, really impactful experiences. And I think that whole learning by doing absolutely is more impactful. But yeah, so look, I hope I didn't go over. I'm sure I did. Apologies.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Now we are at 2:00 on the dot now, so we don't have time for questions. But if anybody wants to find out more, please contact any of us. We would like to hear from you. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Fantastic overview of and diversity of presentations there, and right on time. So as Lucia said, if anybody has any questions, feel free to contact them. I suppose the main theme of that was on all of them was empowerment of students and staff through all the work that's going on with TU Dublin. So just a sincere thanks to the team there who's been doing fantastic work for a number of years. So thanks very much. Just to flag, next week we'll have Mary Immaculate College on the 28th of March. So we're all looking forward to that. So please pass the word. Registration is continuously open. So thanks to everybody, and we'll leave it at that for today.